Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, I want to invite you to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our exciting content. And feel free to comment below about which city you're watching from. What if the life of a critically ill baby and the consciousness of a man in a coma were more intertwined than anyone could imagine? In the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, St. Mary's Hospital, known for handling complicated medical cases and unexpected miracles, was a place where hopes and fears intersected on silent nights. Grace, a dedicated nurse, was about to face the greatest challenge of her career, saving the life of Liam, a fragile 6-month-old baby struggling to breathe, while his father, Jack, remained in a deep coma following a tragic car accident that had occurred days before Liam's birth. Uncertainty hung in the air like a shadow that refused to dissipate. The atmosphere of the neonatal ICU, with its distinctive smell of disinfectant, the beeping monitors, and the continuous sound of life support machines, reflected the challenges Grace faced every day. As she watched Liam, connecting him to the tubes that kept him alive, anguish overwhelmed her. Would she be able to save him? Or would fate reserve another tragedy for this family? Then, just when the situation seemed to reach its lowest point, something extraordinary happened. The hospital doors suddenly swung open, and to everyone's astonishment, a dark brown mare named Aurora entered the premises with an almost supernatural determination. She was neither confused nor frightened. She seemed to know exactly where she needed to go. Grace, stunned, watched as Aurora walked toward the ICU and stopped in front of Liam's crib. What could this unexpected visit mean? When Aurora touched the glass of the crib with her nose, an unbelievable turnaround occurred. Liam's vital signs, which had previously indicated a critical condition, began to slowly improve. Grace could hardly believe what she was witnessing. What kind of mystical connection could exist between this horse and the baby? Could it be that Aurora's presence was also influencing Jack's condition as he began to show signs of consciousness? As the doctors observed Jack slightly moving his fingers, the mystery deepened. Over the days, the story of Aurora and her connection with Jack was revealed, showing that the bond between the horse and the man was not something recent, but dated back many years. Memories from Jack's childhood, filled with happy moments alongside Aurora, flooded his mind, suggesting that there was more at stake than mere coincidence. With each passing day, the situation in the hospital became more intriguing, and Grace found herself facing a dilemma. Could it be that love, faith, and this strange connection between the horse, the father, and the son could change the fate of all? What no one knew was that night at St. Mary's Hospital, a mare was about to challenge logic and change everything. Don't miss this thrilling story of hope, resilience, and the mysteries surrounding life. If you believe in the power of invisible connections, this story will touch your heart. Grace watched Aurora, the mare that now seemed part of the hospital environment, and felt a wave of conflicting emotions. The presence of the animal not only brought a breath of hope but also raised questions that tormented her. How could a horse have such a profound impact on Liam and Jack's lives? And what did it mean for her, a nurse who had already faced so many battles in her career? As Grace struggled with these thoughts, the sound of hurried footsteps brought her back to reality. Dr. Thompson, the head physician of the ICU, entered with a look of concern. He was a man of science, skeptical by nature, and Grace knew that Aurora's visit would not be well received by him. He approached the crib, observing the monitors that now showed signs of improvement. "Grace, what is happening here?" he asked, incredulity evident in his voice. "Do you really believe that this mare is making any difference?" Grace took a deep breath, knowing she had to defend what she had witnessed. "Dr. Thompson, I don't know how to explain it, but ever since Aurora arrived, Liam has responded in a way we haven't seen before. He seems stronger." The doctor shook his head, but Grace could see he was torn between logic and the possibility of something more. "We need to be careful. We can't let hope turn into illusion. Liam's condition is still critical." As Dr. Thompson's words echoed in her mind, Grace realized he was right in one aspect. The fragility of life was a harsh and immutable reality. Each passing day brought new uncertainties and challenges. And this battle was not just about saving Liam, but also about Jack Ahmad, who remained in a coma, fighting against time and his own limitations. The next day, the nursing team gathered to discuss Liam's case. Among them was Sarah, a young and idealistic nurse who always saw the positive side of things. She believed that Aurora's presence was a sign that miracles could happen. Perhaps we are witnessing something extraordinary. The bond between father and son may be stronger than we imagine, she said, a sparkle in her eyes. Grace admired Sarah's determination, but the reality was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Every time she looked at Liam, worry consumed her. What if Jack never woke up? What if, by some quirk of fate, she failed to save the boy? These thoughts haunted her, and the pressure of being responsible for the life of such a vulnerable child left her nearly paralyzed. Tension mounted as the days passed. Liam's health fluctuated, and the medical team had to make tough decisions. Grace found herself forced to confront her own weakness. She couldn't let her fears overpower her. However, every time she looked at Jack, lying in silence, uncertainty enveloped her like a heavy fog. One night, while Grace was making her rounds, she heard a whisper that seemed to come from Jack's room. With her heart racing, she entered and found Dr. Thompson and Sarah examining the patient. To her astonishment, Jack was moving slightly, and his face appeared more relaxed. "He is reacting," Grace said, hope rising in her voice. "Aurora's presence may be helping in some way." Dr. Thompson, though still skeptical, could not ignore the signs. "We need to monitor this closely. If Jack is really starting to awaken, we need to understand what this means." Grace felt a mix of relief and anxiety. What would happen if Jack woke up? Would he remember Liam? And what if he wasn't ready to accept the reality of what had happened? As these questions tormented her, the friendship between Grace and Sarah deepened. They shared their concerns and hopes, uniting around the desire to save Liam and Jack. But as the tension increased, Grace also began to feel the pressure. What would happen if, the moment Jack woke up, the truth became unbearable? The connection between father and son, and the presence of Aurora, became a symbol of hope and love. But the road ahead was filled with challenges, and Grace needed to find the strength within herself to face what was to come. What she didn't know was that the true battle was about to begin, and the fight for Liam and Jack would require everything she had. Grace was walking back to Liam's room, her mind buzzing with thoughts and worries. The anticipation of Jack waking up had brought a new wave of hope, but it also carried a burden of anxiety that seemed to weigh heavily on her shoulders. What would happen when Jack woke up? Would he be able to cope with the reality of the situation? And more importantly, how would he react to learning that his father was fighting for his life? The sound of the monitors in the background was a constant reminder of Liam's fragility. Grace's heart raced every time she looked at the boy, who seemed so small and helpless in his bed. Even with signs of improvement, she couldn't ignore the possibility that it could all be temporary. Dr. Thompson's words echoed in her mind. Hope should not become illusion. She wondered if she was clinging to a hope that could crumble at any moment. That night, as the shift progressed, Grace was called to assist with an emergency. A patient had suffered an unexpected complication, and she found herself engulfed in a whirlwind of activity. The adrenaline kept her alert, but it also distanced her from her thoughts about Liam and Jack. Working under pressure had always been one of her skills, but as the tension mounted, she realized she was on the brink of exhaustion. After hours of intense work, Grace finally managed to take a break. She sat in a corner of the cafeteria, trying to collect herself, but her mind wouldn't stop racing with thoughts of the lives that were in her hands. The weight of her responsibilities was crushing. As a nurse, she had always strived to be strong and determined, but now she felt increasingly vulnerable. What would happen if she failed? What if her actions weren't enough to save Liam and Jack? The next day, the medical team decided it was time to reassess Jack's condition. The air was thick with anticipation, and all eyes were on the boy who was fighting to wake up. Grace was there, along with Sarah and Dr. Thompson, anxiously watching as the doctors conducted their examinations. Her heart was pounding, and hope mingled with fear. When Jack finally opened his eyes, a tense silence filled the room. He looked confused, glancing around as if trying to understand where he was. At first, Grace felt a deep sense of relief, but soon reality began to set in. Jack was awake, but what would he remember? Would he see his father fighting for his life? The thought of the boy feeling lost or scared terrified her. The following weeks were a challenge. Jack was recovering, but his mind remained fragile. He frequently asked about Liam, and each time Grace responded, she felt a growing weight in her heart. How could she explain the situation without causing more pain? She remembered Sarah's words about the bond between father and son. But what if that bond became a burden for Jack? Days passed, and Liam's health continued to fluctuate. Grace watched his condition with increasing concern. Dr. Thompson decided it was time to consider new treatment options, but that meant more risk. He turned to Grace, seeking her opinion, and she felt torn. What was best for Liam? And how much more could they sacrifice his health in the name of hope? The weight of these decisions began to physically affect Grace. She wasn't sleeping enough, and the emotional pressure manifested in constant headaches and a fatigue that seemed never-ending. Sarah noticed the change in her colleague and tried to cheer her up. Grace, we need to believe that we're making a difference. Aurora's presence may still be the key. But Grace wasn't so sure. She felt herself drifting away from her own faith in the situation. The struggle for Liam and Jack seemed more and more like a losing battle. The nights were long and lonely, and with each passing second, doubt grew in her heart. She questioned whether she was truly doing her best. What if, in the end, it was all in vain? It was on one of those dark nights that Grace made a decision. She couldn't let doubt overwhelm her. She needed to find a new strength within herself. As she looked at Aurora, who was calm and serene in her corner, Grace felt a wave of determination. What more could she do for Liam and Jack? She decided that, regardless of what happened, she would fight until the end, not just for them, but for herself as well. And so, with renewed determination, Grace prepared to face whatever was to come. The battle was far from over, and the journey would be filled with challenges. But she knew that with each step, there would be an opportunity to learn, grow, and perhaps find new forms of hope. Grace sat in the small break room, trying to ignore the headaches that had been plaguing her for days. The clock on the wall seemed to drag on, and the murmur of conversation in the background felt distant. She thought about Liam and Jack, about how their situation was unfolding and the decisions she needed to make. The weight of responsibilities enveloped her like a heavy fog, and despite her renewed determination, uncertainty still haunted her. It was then that the hospital phone rang, breaking the silence. Grace answered, and Dr. Thompson's voice on the other end of the line immediately sent a chill through her. He asked her to come to the intensive care unit. Something was happening, and her heart began to race. As she left the room, she couldn't help but wonder if this would be the news she had been dreading. Upon arriving in the ICU, she found the medical team gathered around Liam. He was in a much more critical state than before, and the expressions on the doctors' faces spoke volumes. Grace felt the ground open up beneath her feet. The hope she had managed to gather seemed to crumble in an instant. Dr. Thompson saw her and gestured for her to come closer. "Grace, we need to talk," he said in a serious tone. "There has been an unexpected complication. The current treatment is not working as we had hoped." His words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Grace looked at Liam, who appeared so vulnerable and defenseless in his bed, surrounded by monitors beeping and flashing at a frantic pace. The anguishing reality that she could lose Liam left her speechless. She had always believed there was a solution, that hope was a light that could guide them, but now everything seemed so uncertain. What is the next step?" Grace asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Thompson took a deep breath. We need to consider a different approach. It involves risks, but without it, we don't have many options. Grace felt her world crumbling. She remembered all the times she had convinced herself that hope was enough, that there was always a way out. Now, faced with the possibility of a risky new attempt, her mind was in turmoil. What if it failed? What if the choice she made led to more suffering for Liam and Jack? As she looked at Liam, an unexpected revelation struck her. She realized that, in addition to taking care of others, she needed to take care of herself. The pressure she had put on herself to be the savior, to keep hope alive, was destroying her. The weakness she felt was not just physical. It was an emotional fragility that prevented her from seeing the situation clearly. At the moment when a decision needed to be made, Grace found herself forced to confront her shortcomings. She realized that in her relentless pursuit of answers and solutions, she had ignored her own needs. Liam and Jack's struggle was not just a battle for life, but also a struggle for acceptance. Accepting that not everything was under her control, that life could be unpredictable and, at times, painful. I need some time, Grace said, her voice trembling but determined. I need to think about this. I can't rush it. Dr. Thompson nodded, understanding the emotional burden Grace was carrying. He encouraged her to step away for a moment, to breathe, to reflect. Sometimes, the best decision is to take a step back and reassess. You're not alone in this, Grace. We're all here to help. She left the room, her heart heavy, but at the same time, a little lighter. She needed time for herself, to rethink her choices and her beliefs about what success and hope meant. As she walked through the hospital corridors, she felt the emotional tension rising, but also a new clarity beginning to form in her mind. The fight for Liam and Jack was not just about winning or losing. It was about being present, about the connection they shared. And more importantly, it was about accepting that life, with all its uncertainties, could still be filled with love and meaning. Grace realized she needed the courage to confront not only their situation, but also her own insecurities. And that was a step she was willing to take, not just for Liam and Jack, but for herself. With this new perspective, Grace felt ready to face whatever was to come. The battle was far from over, but now she knew that true strength did not come solely from hope, but from acceptance and the ability to live fully, regardless of the outcome. Grace stepped away from the intensive care unit with her mind filled with confusing thoughts. The hospital corridor, normally familiar, now felt like a maze of uncertainties. She needed time, but what did that really mean? The idea of stopping and reflecting was appealing, yet also terrifying. What would happen if she didn't make the right decision? The weight of responsibility still lingered, but now there was a small space in her mind for acceptance. As she walked, Grace encountered Clara, a nurse who had become a friend during the difficult days. Clara paused and looked at her with a worried expression. "You okay, Grace? You look like you've seen a ghost." Grace forced a smile and shook her head. "Just thinking about everything. Liam, Jack, the decisions. It's a lot, you know." Clara watched her with empathy. "It's normal to feel overwhelmed. You're fighting for them, but you also need to take care of yourself. You can't be strong for others if you're not okay." Clara's words resonated with Grace. She had forgotten that taking care of herself wasn't an act of selfishness, but a necessity. "You're right. I just don't want to fail them. Sometimes, failing is part of the process. The important thing is to be present, even in tough moments. They need to know you're there, not just as a savior, but as someone who also feels and struggles," Clara replied, with a compassionate look. After their conversation, Grace sat on a bench near the window. The sunlight streamed in, warming her face. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. What would the next step be? What did it truly mean to be present for Liam and Jack? As she sat there, images of Jack flashed through her mind. The little boy was the embodiment of hope, even amidst the storm. He always found a way to smile, even when things seemed bleak. But what if Liam's situation worsened? How would Jack cope with that? Grace knew she needed to be strong not just for Liam, but also for her son. The idea of having an honest conversation with Jack began to take shape in her mind. He deserved to know the truth, even if it meant facing pain. Grace stood up and decided to head to the waiting room where Jack usually played with some toys the hospital provided. Upon entering, she found Jack sitting on the floor, focused on a puzzle. His small fingers moved the pieces with determination. Grace smiled at his concentration, but soon reality hit her again. What would she say to Jack? How would she explain the uncertainty of the situation? "Hi, love," Grace said, trying to keep her voice light. Jack looked up with a smile. "Mommy? Look, I'm almost done." "That's great, sweetheart. Can I help you?" Grace sat down beside him, feeling the warmth of her son's presence. "Sure, but you have to find the right pieces," he replied, giving her a challenging look. As they worked on the puzzle together, Grace realized that those small interactions were key to navigating the situation. Even though life was uncertain, those simple moments could be filled with meaning. She decided that no matter what happened with Liam, Jack still needed his mother, not just as a protector, but as someone willing to face reality with him. "Jack, you know Daddy is going through a tough time, right?" Grace began, hesitantly. Sometimes people get sick, and doctors try to help them the best they can. Jack paused for a moment, his small hands resting on the puzzle pieces. "Is he going to get better, Mommy? I want him to come play with me." Grace felt a knot in her throat. "I want that too, sweetheart. But sometimes we have to be patient and wait a little longer. Daddy is strong, and he knows you love him very much." "I love him," Jack replied sincerely. "I'm going to draw him a picture when he gets better. He'll like that." Jack's words warmed Grace's heart. His innocence was a powerful reminder of what truly mattered. Being present, offering love and support, even amid chaos, could be the greatest strength she could give to Liam and Jack. With this new perspective, Grace decided she would face the challenges ahead. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that with love and acceptance, she could help herself and her family navigate through this storm. The road ahead would still be tough, but now she was willing to walk it with courage and the certainty that she was not alone. Grace observed Jack as he focused on the puzzle, and a mix of love and sadness washed over her. The little boy seemed so oblivious to the difficulties life imposed on them, and it made her reflect on how children, with their innocence, could teach valuable lessons. Jack's determination to complete the puzzle symbolized the strength Grace needed to find within herself. After a few moments of silence, Grace decided she needed to go beyond simple words. She wanted Jack to know that even amidst chaos, there was beauty in the little things. She explained to him that sometimes life is like a puzzle. It may seem confusing and disorganized, but little by little, with patience and love, they can piece together the complete picture as she helped him fit the pieces together. Jack looked at her with curiosity, asking if by continuing to assemble the puzzle, they would eventually see what it was. Grace affirmed that even if some pieces didn't fit immediately, they had to keep trying. She felt those words resonating not just for Jack, but for herself as well. It was time for her to start accepting the uncertainty that surrounded her. In the following days, Grace allowed herself to feel the pain and uncertainty that were present. She didn't need to be strong all the time. Accepting help became an important step in her journey. During visits to Liam, she began to talk more with the doctors and nurses, listening carefully to every detail about the treatment and possibilities. With each piece of information, she felt a bit more empowered and less lost. One day, while waiting for the doctor, Clara sat down next to Grace and asked how she was coping with everything, looking at her with concern. Grace sighed, admitting that she was trying to be strong but sometimes felt like she was drowning under the pressure, as if she were carrying the world on her shoulders. Clara responded that it was understandable and that she didn't have to carry everything alone, encouraging her to allow herself to be vulnerable. which wasn't a weakness but a way to find support. Those words touched Grace deeply. She realized that although there was a weight on her shoulders, true strength lay in sharing that burden. From that day on, Grace began to open up more, not only to Clara, but also to other friends and family. She discovered that many were willing to help, which alleviated some of the pressure she felt. Grace started to piece together the image forming in her life, piece by piece. With each conversation and gesture of support, she felt more confident. The internal transformation began to reflect externally. She allowed herself to laugh with Jack, play, and enjoy every simple moment, even knowing that Liam's situation was delicate. Time passed, and although challenges still persisted, Grace learned to appreciate the small victories. Each time Liam showed signs of improvement, even if subtle, she celebrated. Every smile from Jack became a reminder that regardless of difficulties, there was love and hope. One morning, while Jack was drawing a new picture for Liam, Grace sat beside him and asked what he was drawing, admiring the vibrant colors on the paper. Jack replied that he was drawing the three of them, with their dad standing strong, just as she always said. Grace expressed her love for his drawing, feeling a wave of gratitude for having such a special child. Each day, her new perspective on life helped her face fears and uncertainties. She realized that despite the challenges, life was not just about what one had, but about what one felt and shared. The true wealth lay in relationships, love, and the courage to be vulnerable. With time, Grace understood that the lessons she learned made her stronger. She found a balance between hope and acceptance, and this inner transformation helped her face the future with a new outlook. No matter what tomorrow would bring, she knew she was surrounded by love and that together they could overcome any challenge. Life continued its unpredictable course, but Grace was now determined to embark on this journey with an open and courageous heart. She had learned that even in storms, there was always a path forward, and the light she sought had been within her all along. Grace felt her heart tighten as she prepared for another visit to the hospital. The atmosphere was tense, and the uncertainty about Liam's health weighed heavily like a dark cloud. Every day, his battle against the illness grew more intense, and the idea of losing the partner with whom she had built a life felt like a nightmare she couldn't shake off. Jack, on the other hand, maintained his innocence, but Grace knew he also sensed the gravity of the situation. That morning, upon entering Liam's room, Grace found him paler than ever. He was surrounded by medical equipment and his breathing was shallow. Her heart raced, and a wave of emotion enveloped her. The image of the strong, vibrant man she had known felt almost like a distant memory. "Hi, love," Grace said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hi, Grace," Liam replied with a tired smile. "How are things outside? Jack is fine. He made a beautiful drawing for you," Grace said, trying to divert attention from what she was truly feeling. But the truth was that she felt lost, and Liam's fragility made her question the future. During their conversation, Grace noticed the light in Liam's eyes dimming. The pain of seeing him like this filled her with a despair she had long tried to hide. "I don't know if I can keep going like this, Liam. Sometimes I feel like I'm sinking," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You are stronger than you think, Grace." "You always have been," Liam replied, but his voice was weak, and his eyes seemed heavier by the minute. Grace felt a lump in her throat. This conversation shouldn't be like this. They should be talking about plans, dreams, and hopes, not about the end. That night, while Jack slept, Grace sat in the darkness of the room, her heart heavy. She thought about everything they had been through together, the hardships and the moments of joy. The idea of losing Liam was unbearable, but what tormented her more was the prospect of Jack growing up without his father. With a growing weight in her chest, Grace decided she needed to take action. The next day, she returned to the hospital determined. Upon entering Liam's room, she held his hand and looked into his eyes. "We are not going to give up, Liam," Grace said firmly. "We will fight together, just like we always have. You still have so much to give us." Liam looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes. "Do you really believe that?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, I believe. And we will do this for Jack. He needs you, just as I do." "We will find a way," Grace replied, feeling the strength emanating from her own words. In that moment, she realized that the true challenge was not just Liam's health, but how she would cope with that uncertainty. From that day on, Grace became a source of support not only for Liam but also for herself. She began to research more about the illness, to talk to specialists, and to seek alternative treatments. With each step she took, she felt more empowered. And as she saw Liam starting to respond to treatment, her determination grew. One morning, while Jack played with his toys, Grace had an idea. "Jack, how about we make a Strength and Hope mural for Daddy?" She explained the idea, and the boy became excited. They spent the afternoon decorating Liam's room with drawings and inspiring messages. When it was time to show it to Liam, Grace felt butterflies in her stomach. As soon as he saw the mural, tears welled up in his eyes. "You are the reason I fight every day," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You give me strength." Grace realized that even in the face of the hardest challenge of their lives, the unity and love they shared were what truly mattered. Each day they spent together, even with the uncertainties, became a new piece of the puzzle they were assembling, a portrait of family strength, love, and hope. The journey was not without difficulties, but Grace learned that true strength was not just in facing challenges alone, but in sharing the pains and joys with those she loved. And so, she understood that even though life was unpredictable, there was always a way forward, as long as they were together. Grace felt that time had stopped since the day they decided to create the mural of Strength and Hope. Liam's room, once filled with machines and medications, was now vibrant with the colors of Jack's drawings and the messages they had written together. Each stroke, each word, seemed to tell a story of love and resilience. In the days that followed, Liam's health began to show small improvements. The tears of emotion he shed upon seeing the mural transformed into shy smiles, and the weakness that once dominated his body began to give way to a faint glimmer of hope. Grace watched, with a tight heart, as Liam struggled to get out of bed and take his first steps, even if still wobbly. "You are doing so well," Grace praised him as she helped him lean on the edge of the bed. "Jack will be so proud of you." "I couldn't do this without you," Liam replied, his voice still weak but filled with emotion. "You are my fuel." Grace smiled, but couldn't shake a wave of concern. She knew the fight was far from over. There were days when uncertainty threatened to return, like a silent shadow. But with each passing day, she realized that their strength as a family was greater than any obstacle they faced. One night, while Jack slept peacefully in his room, Grace and Liam sat together on the bed. The soft light from the lamp illuminated their tired faces. But there was a calm in the air. Grace decided it was time to talk about what they were going through. "Liam," she began hesitantly, "I know the road ahead is still long and full of challenges, but I want you to know that I will be by your side, no matter what happens." Liam looked at her with gratitude. "I always knew that, Grace. But I want you to take care of yourself too. You can't carry all this weight alone." She sighed, acknowledging the truth in his words. "I know, but I worry about you and Jack. Sometimes, I feel like I'm trying to be too strong. You are strong because you care, and you don't have to do this alone. We are a team," he said, squeezing her hand. "Let's keep fighting together." That night, Grace reflected on the strength they found in each other. She realized that even in uncertainty, there was space for hope. She decided that regardless of what the future held, they would face it together. Life might be unpredictable, but the love they shared was constant. In the days that followed, the mural became a symbol of their struggle. Friends and family began to visit, bringing support and warmth. Everyone left messages and drawings, and the mural grew even more. Jack, always excited, helped welcome the visitors and showed everyone what he had created. "Look, Dad, another drawing for you," Jack exclaimed, thrilled. Liam looked at his son with a smile that lit up his pale face. He felt that life still had much to offer, and that gave him strength. Each day, Liam grew stronger. He began participating in therapies, and even though there were tough days, there were also moments of joy and celebration. Grace realized that, like Liam, she was also transforming. The experience made her recognize the importance of taking care of herself and seeking support when necessary. One night, while Jack slept, Grace and Liam talked about the future. "Have you thought about what you want to do when you're better?" Grace asked. "I want to take Jack to the park. I want to see him run and play like a child should," Liam replied, his eyes shining with the image in his mind. "And I want the three of us to travel together, create new memories." Grace smiled, feeling hope grow within her. "I want that too, and we will make it happen, Liam. We are doing this together." In the months that followed, Grace, Liam, and Jack's lives became a journey of overcoming and love. They learned to cherish every small moment, to find joy in the little things. The challenges they faced brought them even closer together, and the strength they found in each other became a solid foundation for the future. Life still brought challenges, but together, they were ready to face them. And so, with renewed hope and love in their hearts, Grace knew that regardless of what tomorrow would bring, they would always have each other. As the months went by, Liam was becoming a new version of himself. The man who had faced the darkness of illness was now walking toward the light. Each step, although still hesitant, symbolized his strength and determination. The mural of strength and hope had transformed into a living testament to his family's resilience, a work of art that captured not only the struggle but also the joy of shared moments. Grace watched with pride and love as Liam became increasingly involved in Jack's life. They spent afternoons together, playing ball in the yard and exploring the local park. Jack's laughter, pure and contagious, filled the air and reminded Grace of the importance of cherishing every moment. With his renewed smile, Liam seemed to have found a new reason to live, a new mission, to be a present father, a loving partner, and an example of overcoming. The journey was not easy. There were days when the shadow of the past threatened to return, but together they learned to face those moments with courage. Grace felt that by caring for Liam and Jack, she was also healing herself. The family bond grew stronger with each challenge they overcame, showing them that true strength came from love and mutual support. One morning, as the sun shone brightly, Liam had an idea. He wanted to organize a small party in the yard to celebrate life and recovery. Grace was delighted with the proposal, and they soon began to plan. They invited friends and family, and over the week, excitement grew. Jack helped choose decorations and prepare snacks, his smile lighting up every corner of the house. On the day of the party, the yard was filled with laughter, music, and love. Liam gave an emotional speech, thanking everyone who had stood by him. He spoke about the ups and downs they had faced, the importance of each person's support, and, most importantly, the strength he found in his family. "Being there with all of you is a true gift," he said, with tears in his eyes. "Life is precious, and I have learned to cherish it more than ever." Grace felt her heart overflow with emotion. In that moment, she realized that Liam's journey and theirs together was not just about recovery, but about renewal. They were ready for a fresh start, not just as individuals, but as a family united by unbreakable bonds. The mural, now filled with messages and illustrations, had become a symbol of their achievements and a constant reminder that, despite challenges, there was always room for hope. As the party continued, Grace looked at Liam and Jack, realizing how much they had grown and changed. They had learned that life is made of fresh starts, that each day is a new opportunity to love, laugh, and live fully. The experience transformed them, bringing a new perspective on what truly matters: love, family, and resilience in the face of adversity. And so, with hearts full of gratitude and hope, Grace, Liam, and Jack prepared to embrace the future. They knew that together, they could face any challenge life presented. Their story was proof that overcoming is possible, and that even in the darkest situations there is always a light to be found. If you have also faced challenges in your life or had moments of overcoming, share your experiences in the comments. Let's celebrate the victories and lessons learned along the way together. Every story is important and can inspire others to find their own strength. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of hope and love. What was the moment in this story that touched your heart the most? Was it Grace's struggle to save Liam, Aurora's unexpected arrival, or Jack's signs of consciousness? We would love to hear your opinion. Leave a comment below sharing what moved you the most, and share your reflections with us. Your participation is essential in helping us bring inspiring stories, like those of Liam, Jack, and Aurora, to more people. If you know someone who would be touched by this journey of overcoming, hope, and the power of unexpected connections, don't hesitate to share this video. Together, let's spread stories that touch the soul and bring a breath of hope. And if you want to keep following narratives that capture the true essence of life and love, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. This way, you'll be the first to know when we release new videos that promise to take you on a new emotional adventure. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next touching story.